for advertisers and management of Pacific Telestations LLC. This message is brought to you by the stations of KUAM.
Hey, welcome to the Candidate Buzz, right here on KUAM TV 8 in Isla 63. Yep, we're on to the finals, Decision 2014, Super Tuesday, November 4th. That's, yes, 6 days away. And my in-studio guest, of course, is our UOG analyst, Dr. Ron McNinch, and also the pollster. How you doing, Doc? How you doing this morning?
Good morning, Senator.
How are you? Hey, you know what? What's the landscaping look like right now? I mean, I know all my callers are heated up.
Sure.
all sides are entrenched.
Sure. They need to be. Absolutely. This is the last week. This is going to be an odd week, though.
Okay.
Because, you know, the great debate's on Thursday. That's tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Great debate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then Friday is Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two religious holidays,
Mm-hmm.
All Saints Day, All Souls Day. Monday is a public holiday, that's All Souls Day
Mm-hmm.
observed.
Sure.
And then Tuesday's the election.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in a blink, this thing's going to be over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be 4 solid days of people talking to each other.
Sure.
Because there's going to be a lot of open time,
Mm-hmm.
lots of social things going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be very interesting.
Now, let me ask you this, because of course, we sit there and analyze debates and talk about different candidates and both the Republican and Democratic side. But the last debate, former Governor Gutierrez brought out a tax write-off issue. Tom Fisher had responded to the Garrison Mattel campaign that said, "Hey, you're totally wrong on this," and he says, "I cannot really." Don't know. I don't have the official documents because the documents that I'm reading from the internet are illegally acquired. So somebody had to steal them to be able to do that. So I'm working on. Let's assume that the paperwork that you have is legit. And from what we're reading and what we read here is that that's not a Calvo company that you've identified there. It's the wrong company. What effect does a wrong, we say, hey, it looks like him, and then that person turns around and it is, and it's not. What effect does that or will that have in this election?
Well, I mean, everybody knows me, and I hate to sound like this. I could care less who gets elected, but a lot of this is just political talk.
Mm-hmm.
So on the one hand, Gutierrez says, here's what I think. And then the response is a political response from the campaign on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So this, to me, is just campaign exchanges. And that's how I view it.
Mm-hmm.
Not rationally who's right, who's wrong, how bad is what they did was done, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I don't worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm looking at myself is these are basically political statements said by political people in political
Mm-hmm.
exchanges.
Well, but let me ask you this question, because I think it was 2 elections ago, there was a sitting senator whose family member had done something, and that senator was not at all. I mean, all your polls had indicated that senator was going to be reelected.
Right.
But a few days before the election, a family member was involved in a situation,
Sure.
and, as you said, directly attributed to the loss of that particular
Right.
candidate. Now, could this potentially be something like that?
No. And the difference is, and there's a very clear difference here. The difference is when Mana's husband ran down and yelled at the school people, right? And this is all public record, it's all
Mm-hmm.
public news, whatever. She then, discussed it in public,
Mm-hmm.
on
Okay.
TV and
Yeah.
everything else, and that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and in that, the candidate then talked about it and lit the fuse, so to speak, on
Mhm,
it.
mhm.
In this case, with the allegations about tax write-offs and then the responses to it, this is an ongoing political exchange. It's this and then that, and then this and then that. And that's how it's going to come back. Because right now, as I said, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Mhm,
Monday, Tuesday,
mhm,
it's over. Big block of holidays. Both sides can keep this thing going all the way
Sure.
through to the end of
Sure.
Tuesday.
Sure.
and people can say, okay, I believe this side or that side. That's going to be the only outcome of this.
Now, in your estimate at this point, because I mean, I hear people, whether they're political or apolitical people at this point. I'm hearing, of course, staunch supporters on both sides, and people who are in the middle who are not supporters of any side, but are voters, and justifying their vote. Now, let me ask you, what percentage do you think out there, the people of Guam, who have not made their decision yet, and this great debate that's happening was probably a determining factor. What percentage do you think of the voting population that will be going to the polls on Tuesday are still undecided?
I think a good, easy measure is to take a look at the previous races, probably in the range of 10 to 15%.
10 to 15%, okay.
It's not a lot. And people, and by the way, people either love Carl Gutierrez or they hate Carl Gutierrez. People either love Governor Calvo or they hate Governor Calvo. If not, then they're in the middle somewhere.
Sure.
And then there's this whole middle group that's tolerant of both and just look at both as is being fairly equal and things like that. The interesting thing about this election is just the approaches both candidates are using. Very different approaches, very different ways of trying to get people to vote for them.
Okay. Now we discussed this as well. I mean, after the primary, we discussed this, and you had mentioned as well that after the primary, and there's folks as well that mentioned the fact that after the primary, Carl Gutierrez, Gary Gumatauta will just see, just enormous contributions that are be coming in. Well, the latest figures from the Guam Election Commission has it that Carl Gutierrez, Gary Gumatauta, that team, the Democratic gubernatorial team, has only raised about 170-something thousand. What happened? I mean, there were. Is that is that a lot of money? Because for a gubernatorial campaign, I mean, there are quite a few senatorial campaigns that amount to that amount.
Sure.
To that amount. Yeah.
Sure. I don't know. I think that there's a few factors that relate to this. Is it that they don't have a lot of money because they haven't tried to fundraise? That's one question. Or that they're not using a money-based approach. And so that there's different angles on this. But I do think that the final effect or the final word will be the technique that the Gutierrez Gumatauta side is using is to close the gap right up to the weekend, and then use a heavy person-to-person set of techniques that defies advertising. And that's politics. That's one way that people use to overcome another candidate that has a lot of ability or capacity to buy advertising. So you overcome the advertising by using a strong person-to-person approach.
But aren't both sides doing that as right now? I mean, when because we discussed this as well in the use of social media, and the Gutierrez Gumatauta is using a lot of social media, but so are Calvo Tenorio. So with heavy pressing the flesh, kissing the babies and old ladies. I mean, they're all doing that right now. I mean, I can't see. I mean, even if you're campaigning for the next election, you're doing that right now. I mean, you're kissing babies and old ladies and pressing the flesh. So again, all things being equal at this point, everyone is doing basically the same thing.
No, not at all.
You don't think so?
No.
Yeah.
Not in the same way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hate to sound like this, but the governor and lieutenant governor have to be the governor and lieutenant governor. 100% of the day they have to deal with their job. So they can't campaign all day long.
No. I mean,
and
granted the fact that they got to be in the office, they got meetings to set,
right.
and all that, and you're right. They probably from 8 to 5. They're probably not campaigning. They're campaigning in a different way,
right.
not pressing. I mean, pressing the flesh indirectly. Other than business and government work that has to be done. And you're right. The people that don't have to be in an office setting for 8 hours probably have a 8-hour head start.
Sure.
You doing that.
So there's that aspect for the person-to-person stuff, and that's what we generally call retail politics. That is, this is the retail stuff that's going on. Very interesting side on those.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Hey, I tell you, I got to take a quick break right now, but I tell you, when we come back, I want to talk about UOG, the students, the great debate. You guys have been criticized by the Gutierrez Gutauta campaign that, gosh, you're letting questions out. So we'll talk about that when we come out.
Okay.
Okay? We'll be right back.
This program